Mount Sinjar made international headlines in 2014 when tens of thousands of Yazidis fled into these hills to escape ISIS, carrying little more than the clothes on their backs. It was midsummer, and hundreds died of thirst and exposure on the trek. Eventually, the world community came together to deliver water and food to those left stranded on the mountain. 2 winters have come and gone, and there are still thousands of Yazidis living in makeshift camps, while down below, Kurdish soldiers have established a perimeter around the city of Sinjar, which was held by ISIS for a year and a half. When they were finally pushed out last November, they left the city an uninhabitable ruin. Most Yazidis won't be able to return to Sinjar for years, if ever. But help is coming from an unlikely place, the country of Burma, also known as Myanmar. These Burmese Christians have come to Iraq to give aid and training to the Yazidis and the Kurdish army, and they understand persecution better than most. They belong to a group called the Free Burma Rangers. David Eubank is the founder.
For the past 20-plus years, we've been in Burma in the different conflict areas, sharing the love of Jesus, giving people help, and getting the news out. And then last year, we were invited here, and this is our 4th trip where we've come back to help the Kurdish people under attack by ISIS.
The Free Burma Rangers has made a name for itself, going into conflict zones around the world and helping the world's most vulnerable people. Dave's background and military experience made him uniquely prepared for this kind of ministry.
My background, growing up as a missionary kid in Thailand, hunting since I was very small, running around the jungle, also in the Rangers, and then later in Special Forces, all that enabled me to understand how do you function in a war zone? How can you help people? What's realistic? What's not realistic? What can you really do?
This trip, the Free Burma Rangers have been here for 6 weeks, spending time with frontline troops conducting training and providing medical care. They've also brought over $20,000 worth of donated warm clothing for the Yazidis living on top of Mount Sinjar. But Dave doesn't do this alone. He brings his wife and 3 children because they believe these Yazidi children can more easily relate to the gospel that way.
I have faith in God that He will protect me wherever I go and wherever our family goes. ISIS is a very strong force that needs to be stopped, and there are still women and children held captive by ISIS. Sinjar just mostly looks like rubble, and buildings have been destroyed, and many have just been flattened.
We're driving through the city of Sinjar, and I'm starting to notice that there are civilians coming back in. Even just a second ago saw a shop that was open. People are kind of scavenging around through the ruins, picking up whatever they can find that's useful, and just starting the process of putting their lives back together.
One of those families was fortunate that ISIS used their home as a headquarters, and so it wasn't destroyed. They've opened a bakery to sell bread to the soldiers who are guarding the city.
As the first families start to come back into the shattered city of Sinjar, the FBR team is here conducting a Good Life Club and teaching these Yazidi kids that God's love is deep and wide.
One man we met told us ISIS kidnapped his wife in 2014, and he hadn't heard from her until 3 days before this interview. She called to say she was being held in a prison in Ramadi and that ISIS was now asking for a ransom of $5,000. Before he could finish his story, his phone rang. It was his cousin, a 15-year-old boy, captured about the same time as his wife. The young man had been taken to an ISIS training camp in Syria and was pleading for help to escape. Everyone had thought he was dead. As ISIS is slowly being pushed out of Iraq, they're starting to try and ransom their captives back to their families. And despite the cost, these Yazidis are desperate to get their loved ones back.
What would you do if your wife was captured 2 years ago with your baby kids? What would you do, really? I think you would move heaven and earth to go save them. And that's what we need to do.
For the time being, Dave and his team are continuing to do what they can to shine the light of hope into a very dark place.
Hello, infantry.
From Mount Sinjar, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
The life of a Ranger is a life for me.